when I started thinking about what habit could I do today, the miracle morning, you do a push up a day. And then by the time a year has come, you're doing 20 push ups, right? So I time block my days and I take notes every day. I check my email 3 times a day. I don't do it all day long. And, I just have these small little habits that are tiny. And if I can do half of them, they've improved my day.
Welcome back to the Bringing Up Business podcast, where we talk about business and parenting. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much for being here and welcome. This show is brought to you by marketing and creative agency Umari Digital. Whether you want to work for yourself or you already have a business and you're planning a family, you are in the right place with this show. Our goal is to empower you with strategies so that you can confidently work for yourself while raising a family. I am your host, Kaila Sachse. I have been self-employed for the past 9 years, and I'm currently raising a toddler. It's a little insane right now, but I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and honestly, with what I do and my work, I'm actually really enjoying this. Let's introduce today's guest. Today's guest is Cami MacNamara, a Seattle-based web designer. She owns Cami LLC. Since 2002, she has built over 600 websites, and she manages more than 200 through ongoing care plans. Cami is also the author of Web Designer Habits newsletter, where she shares practical strategies for running a sustainable web design business. Cami, I'm so glad you could join me today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I love your podcast, and I just can't wait to have a discussion with you.
I've been so looking forward to this. The last we spoke, I think it was 6 months-ish ago?
Close to 6 months ago. Yes.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I've been really looking forward. Okay, so let's go back even further in time, back to when you started your business in 2002. What prompted you to start your own thing? Why did you start your own business? What were you doing at the time? What did that look like?
Well, I worked for a corporate retail company in downtown Seattle, and the hours were super long. And when I became pregnant, I thought I would just go right back to work. And in fact, I did have a nanny for a while, but I did it for like 3 months. And I thought I really just want to be with my son. Then I tried to do that, and I just was a worker. That didn't work for me either. So I went into a business with 2 other women that I worked with in corporate retail, and we started a gift and polo trophy business for polo teams, which sounds very niche, but we had contacts in that area. And I did that for a couple of years, but I really wanted to do something on my own that I didn't have partners and I could just work from home. I picked up a web designer or a web design book, fell in love with it, and I started going to school. So once I started doing that, I just started volunteering all over the community. And by the time my son was 5, I had started my business and was working part-time when he was going to school. So he was in kindergarten at the time, and I've been going strong ever since. So it just continued to grow, and the longevity of it has just been great.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Congratulations on your continued
Thank you.
success. It's not easy, right? When we go off on our own and
No. Yeah.
definitely challenging. So
It's hard to stay on top of everything, right? But you manage to do it.
yeah. What do you think has fueled your ability to keep going and, keep pressing through those hard times when maybe you don't want to wake up early to do the project, or maybe you don't want to meet the deadline at the time and you're tempted to push it, or whatever that hard time looks like? Like, what helps you keep going through that?
So I really listen to myself. Like I haven't always had that. I mean, I remember being absolutely frantic trying to deal with everything on my plate. And as I have grown in my business, I have grown in the ability to tell people when I need more time and, really empower myself to control the timeline and not let the client do it. That wasn't always the case. But when you kind of turn it into your power, not their power, it helps you push through those times. So that's something I've learned over time.
That is such an important point. It's so easy for us to fall into stress because we've just said yes to everything. For example, I had a client who contacted me about a project. Yeah, we'll call it day one. And then the next day, he's touching base on how the project is going. When realistically, a project like that, this was an email marketing campaign. A project like that, it's not going to be an overnight turnaround. I am not.
Right.
I'm not working around the clock just for his project alone. I have a queue of people who've come in before him, and also, it's unrealistic to expect a overnight turnaround from anybody. So just yeah,
Right.
I've had to get
Yeah.
back to him and be honest.
Right. The thing that I changed, that's something that's so common, right? And so now when I onboard a client, and my proposal documents come through and all of that, I am encouraging them to know that I'm the project manager and that they're going to get a weekly update from me, not a daily update. So, but those are the things that like I will always document the experience that I'm having and try to come up with a way to never have it happen again. So I kind of look at those clients as the best teachers on how I can refine my systems, and that's been a huge help for me.
That is very well put because at the end of the day, we can't avoid having sour experiences. That's just they're
Right.
going to happen. The best we can do though is learn from them. So instead of having them recur and over again and now we're digging a hole for ourselves and eventually burning out and maybe even quitting our businesses, we can instead pivot and say, okay, that experience wasn't very fun. How can I avoid that from happening again? So I
Right,
absolutely love
right.
that.
I have a blog post on one of my websites somewhere that is really about like the worst client I ever had taught me the best lesson. And that's just, me taking that experience and making sure it never happened again. So, if you turn it around that way, I have lunch on Zoom every Thursday with my web designer BFF, and we were talking today about things and saying how that moment where you start getting frustrated by all your clients is the universe telling you to take a day off. Because when we work for ourselves, we don't just take, it's like, oh, I'm going to take a vacation day. We don't do that. And, I might be on the verge of one tomorrow.
You and me both, sister. It's so funny that you say that because what is the point of designing our lives, right? And living in an alternative way because we could realistically turn to a 9 to 5 or, a full-time job, a part-time job working for somebody else and sacrificing that flexibility with how we get to choose our
Right.
time, right? So why is it that we choose the flexibility and yet we still don't really take advantage of it? What do you think that's about? It's crazy.
Well, I think sometimes we're just wired to have a boss, right? And so a lot of our clients, I mean, you and I being in the marketing space, that type of they hire us and then there is a feeling that we're part of their team, which I appreciate and I like, but I'm also not. I'm also the driver of what I'm working on. So I think there is a balance that we need to strike when we're first onboarding those clients to really put that out in front. And all the mistakes that I made in the past where things went really south were me not standing up for myself as the project manager.
Yeah, yep. That reminds me of a conversation that I had with my husband years ago when I was feeling so maybe ashamed is the emotional word of how poorly one of my clients' businesses was performing. I was so invested in that in that client and in what they were doing, and I really wanted to see it succeed. And I was actually blaming myself for their lack of sales and their lack of this and their lack of that.
Mhm.
When in reality, this was the wake-up call that he had shared with me. Their business is not my business.
Mhm.
They are steering their own ship. That has zero to do with me. What I do, the role that I do play though, is the role that I have committed to them. So whatever it is that they've hired me for is the only that is the only commitment that I have, right? Now, am I going to be loyal to my clients and be on their team? Of course. I love that. I absolutely love that dynamic. But am I going to have to hold responsibility for how my clients' businesses perform? No, that's unrealistic unless they're sharing equity and hiring me on in a
Right.
different way.
Well,
Yeah.
I think naturally we want to support them, right?
Mhm.
Like women, we're helpers. We want to help them succeed. We want to make sure that, we're giving it our all and helping them. Like right now in web design, so many of my clients are like, my search results are down. Well,
Mm.
guess what? Everybody's are down. AI, people are finding the answer before they ever click down to see, and it's changing for all of us.
Yep.
So, in that instance, you kind of feel their angst, and we have this economy that people are worried about, and it's just, it's palpable, that feeling of just not having the control, or things are different than they were. And I think all my clients are having an adjustment to how they utilize their website. And, the email marketing is so much more important. And anyway, I do think we feel, because that's what women in business do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about that for a bit. What do you think what do you think the purpose is of a website here in this current day and age? I've heard in some spheres like, hey, websites are phasing out. We don't need them. But I've heard in other spheres where it's like, hey, websites are still incredibly important. So what do you think?
I think the website is sort of like a big piece of your online presence. Now, years ago I would say it was the sun and social media were the planets going around your website. I don't think it's quite the nucleus that it used to be. It's still big, right? Maybe it's Jupiter now, right?
Yeah.
And everything else is out there, but I think a really important piece is to think about what happened to the people on TikTok when TikTok went down and the government shut it down. Your followers on social media do not belong to you. They belong to the platform. So having your website be your anchor, having a newsletter and a mailing list, all of those things help you stay connected when everything else might be taken away from you for a policy violation, or who knows what could happen in the future. So that is why I think it's important. And I think a lot of business is still local. Most of the businesses that I work for are local businesses, they aren't necessarily a national business. So when you're doing local business, people expect you to have a website. It legitimizes you. And also, it gives a place for your reviews to connect to. And there are so many pieces, but I am a believer that you need to have a website and you need to kind of own that, right? Whether you're I'm a developer first, and WordPress allows you to really be the owner of your website, unlike Wix, Weebly, Squarespace. I do Squarespace websites as well, and that's appropriate for some types of businesses. But definitely, I'm not ready to say just throw your website out yet.
Yeah.
Like, things are changing, though. We don't know where it's going. AI is really changing our entire landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny. my best friend reached out to me today, and he was like, "Hey, I got an email from someone who can build me a website for free." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Huh,
Hmm.
what?" Right. It just, and he's like, "Hey, can you scan through this email that they sent me and look for any red flags?" And I was like, "Hey, this whole concept feels like a giant red flag." And so I told him like, "Hey, make sure you own that website. Make sure you can actually be in control of that website because yes, like your website should be the one thing in your business, among other things, that you actually own and can control. Because unlike the TikTok shutdown, right?
Hmm.
Many people were destroyed by that. Even the idea of
Many.
yeah, I mean, even the idea
Yeah,
of Meta going down, that would destroy people's businesses if they
exactly.
don't have that other space for their business to live in and on. So yeah, it's that I'm so
Yeah,
glad you brought that up.
I would use the analogy to your friend that if somebody knocked on your front door and said, "I'm a house cleaner, I'll clean your house for free," would you let them in your house to clean it? The odds are probably no, because you're opening up your home. And all my clients get those emails that are like, "I can do your SEO, I'll do this." Anybody that sends you a cold email is no one you should ever do business with. That's yeah, because one, you don't know who is on the other end of that email. It can look like it's somebody in your neighborhood, and it could be somebody just looking to steal your information.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just tread carefully, folks, because at the end of the
Yes.
day, like Cammy says, like you don't know who's
You
on
have
the other
no
side, what their
idea.
intentions are. No idea. Zero idea. So yeah, we got to be careful when we're building our businesses and who we're hiring.
That's right. My house might be really dirty sometimes, and it would be wonderful to have an Alice show up at my front door, but I don't know that person. So same theory.
Yeah, yeah, tread carefully. You had mentioned before that you had a partner with a previous venture, and then but
Yes.
you decided to go off on your own and do your own thing. Respectfully speaking, what was it about having a partner that you did not enjoy? And we're sharing this with the audience members who are
Yeah. Well, both
weighing the
of
pros
these
and
women
cons.
are dear friends and they're still my friends. And there was like absolutely nothing bad about our situation other than when you divided the profits three ways, there was hardly any profit.
Yeah.
So, in what we were doing. And it was a great learning experience. But at the end of the day, I'm driving with my son because we had a daycare going upstairs and we were working in the basement. And by the time all that was done, I just wasn't making any money, right? Not enough to make a difference. And so that's when I kind of decided I want to work solo because then I'm not dividing the profits.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
still to this day, I don't even outsource anything. I've had a couple VAs that have been great. That has been helpful. But for the most part, my overhead is very low. And so all the money I make is my own. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
really the reason why.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice to have that that control over the revenue and understanding like, hey, everything I'm making is my profit. I don't have to split it. And that's something that you can build into your business model when you go into being a solopreneur. So you intentionally choose like I'm going to be a solopreneur, understanding that maybe I can't take on a billion projects and scale
That's
up in
right.
a massive way, but the trade-off there is that I get to have 100% profit and revenue and control over this
Yeah.
business.
On the other side of this, I had a very good friend who was running a popular agency here in Seattle, and he shared with me his like revenue spreadsheet, and he made triple what I make,
Yeah.
but he had six people working as
Yeah.
contractors. and his take home pay was the same. And so my gut after seeing that was I don't need to expand because of course I could triple my output, but I'm going to clear the same amount of money. So why not just be on my own?
Right, right. And the point, one of the major benefits of going out on your own is being able to control your own schedule and control your own
Mhm.
life, design your own life. And for me, maybe this is something for the audience to think about, right? Like if you're listening in, think about what your values are in life. What do you want out of life? For me, when I went out on my own, I wanted freedom. That was my
Yeah.
biggest marquee item, and I can only imagine how much time and mental load your friend is sacrificing by having a
He
larger
sold
team.
his agent. He sold his agency. You know, I mean he's very happy, but it wasn't a long-term thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that's okay, and that's okay, and
It's
that's
totally okay. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean he's living his best life. I'm very
yeah.
happy for him, but
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and that's something else for listeners to consider. Like, you don't have to work in your business for forever. You could have an
right.
exit plan of selling, and that's cool too. Like that is an option.
Yeah, I've had friends retire and pass their business along to, various people and other people have purchased businesses. It can be a good lucrative way to look at it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and for some people that is the only way, right? So I have a client, for example, who that is their sole intent is to eventually sell. So they are making decisions now in order to help that happen later on down the road.
Yeah,
So
it's very lucrative thing to do. And,
yeah.
a lot of people are wired for that more entrepreneurial spirit type thing versus the solopreneur. It would be a
Mhm.
little tough for me to sell webcammy. I think I'm taking it to the grave because it's my name. But, we'll see what happens. And uh, there are many ways to do this. And I think people just need to pick the right way for them and not to feel pressure to do it another way. Like, I have gotten a lot of pressure over the years. Like, Cami, why don't you expand? Why don't you hire? Well, it's not right for me, but that doesn't mean it's not right for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. What's beautiful about your story is that it sounds like you've had an intuitive sense of what works well for you and pairing that with your maybe it's bravery, maybe it's courage, or maybe it's just how you do life.
Or
Pair that
stubbornness.
stores
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, pairing that with your ability to say yes or no firmly, this is what I want to do. And that can help you a lot with reducing mental load too. I talk about
Yeah,
mental
I
load a lot.
for any woman who has her own business, I think your power to say yes and no to what you are in tune with is just it makes or breaks it in terms of your happiness, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It definitely has a deep effect on how you feel about your days, right? Because we
Yeah,
have a
it
limited
really
number of
is.
days.
Yes, and it's a day-to-day process of running your business.
Yeah. Tell me more. What does your typical schedule look like and your typical day or week look like? Or is
Well,
there a typical?
yeah, no, I am incredibly structured. It's sort of why the web designer habits thing came to be. So I am somebody who over the years has signed up for so many online workshops and how to do this and how to do that, trying to just find peace in my day. Like
Yeah.
the day to day is the struggle for a business owner. And so I have done some remarkable courses that I loved, but it took me a year and a half to implement the program. And so when I started just thinking about what habit could I do today, the whole do one push up a day thing. I forget what, that was the miracle morning or something. You do a push up a day. And then by the time a year has come, you're doing 20 push ups, right? So I time block my days and I take notes every day. I just have these incremental small habits. I check my email 3 times a day. I don't do it all day long. There are days when I just turn it off completely if I'm working on design. And, I just have these small little habits that are tiny. And if I can do half of them, they've improved my day, you know? So it's more or less trying to make small incremental changes in how you handle your workday so you don't feel frazzled all the time. Now, do I have days where I'm just like, oh, things don't go right? I do. But then the next day I just start over and try to do it right.
Yeah.
Or to not do it right, but to do more of the habits that I didn't get to the day before.
I
So
love
those are
that.
kind of the topics that I hit on my newsletter.
That's so holistic because it's not saying, "Hey, you have to do all of the things all right now and pay $1,500 to be fixed overnight." It's none of that
Right,
get rich quick kind of stuff. It's a, "Hey, I have control over this little tiny minute habit. That's it. And I just got
right.
to practice that."
If
Yeah.
I, you know, don't respond to emails until at the end of the day versus, how I have it. It's like I get an email and I want to fix it,
Mhm.
but I'm in the middle of something else.
Right.
So
Right.
sometimes I will go ahead and type the email because it makes me feel better, but I'll schedule it to go out at the end of the day. So you're training your clients too. For the person who always responds to the client immediately, if you don't do it the next time, they're going to be like, "Hey, I didn't hear from you like 10 minutes ago."
Yep.
So if you're always pushing out and giving yourself a buffer, you're training them to know that you're not dropping everything.
Yep. Ooh, that's so important. And that also
Yeah.
includes responding at 11 p.m. or responding on
Oh,
weekends if you don't want to work weekends or vacation
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Another great habit is the email autoresponder that goes on Friday at 4 o'clock or whenever your day ends that says, "Thanks for your email. I'm closed on the weekends. And unless you're having an emergency, which means your website's down, not like I forgot to send this to you, I'll get back to you Monday."
I
Yeah,
absolutely love
that
that.
one's a that's a good
Oh,
one. That trains your client.
ooh, I might start practicing that. I like
Yeah,
that. Right now I'm in busy. It's a busy season. I just got an
me
influx
too.
of clientele, and I've set an autoresponder that says, "Hey, we're in busy season and it's going to take me a minute to get back to you." So it's adjusting that expectation.
It's also good in your email signature. You can put any emails sent after, I say, 11 a.m. on Friday may not be returned until Monday. So just anywhere you can just drop hints, it's helpful.
I absolutely love that. It's setting expectation for both the client, but also it's relieving that pressure on yourself, especially as a parent, right? When you
Right.
have younger children or kids who demand your attention at specific times of the day, you really
Yeah.
can't be on your phone. It just
No,
doesn't work. You can't give your kids the attention that they deserve. It's unhelpful for their development. It's
it's
unhelpful for your
true. And
relationship.
after I've worked a long day, I'm not going to give you my best at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. Or, I will respond if somebody's website is dead in the water, right?
Right. Right.
But that's a rare occasion.
Right.
Um, and I think when we met earlier, I told you that my parents passed away in 2022, and that was kind of like a very it was very difficult to keep my business going, and I managed to do it. And part of that was keeping my clients informed and
Yeah.
putting up boundaries. So it would be
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be with my folks. And at the time, they didn't have internet at their house. So I'd be like, if you have an emergency, I'm not going to be able to get back to you right away.
Yeah.
So they were all so wonderful, but it really helped me form that not a barrier between being somebody. I'm not a 24/7 call center.
Yeah. 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 At the end of the day, it's okay for us to put up our own personal boundaries, especially when we're going through something difficult. I feel like it's hard for
Yeah.
us. Maybe this is a female thing that we've told ourselves we always have to be there for everybody else all the
Yes.
time, right? We forget
Yeah,
to be there
it's
for
true.
ourselves and check in. So that's
And
something else.
and some
Yeah.
business owners are on all the time. That's their choice. So you don't have to make the same choice. My son is 28 now, but I started the business when he was 5. We went through everything, 13 years of little league. Right? He played all the way until, late teens. In that, I would sometimes at that point get a phone call in the middle of a game or something. And back then I would answer. And
Yeah.
after a while, it was like, I'm not doing this anymore because I can't do anything about it. I'm a scorekeeper, you know, like I can't do anything. So anyway, yeah, we have to put
Yeah.
up those barriers so we can do what's important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's that reminds me of something that I'm working through right now. I'm about to break up with the email app on my phone because I
Oh,
am
mhm.
checking my emails during the time that I'm watching my toddler. And it's just I feel like I'm going crazy. Like my mental toll is so heavy and having to think
Right.
about all of these problems that or not even problems, but just messages that are popping up throughout the day. And it's something where it's like, okay, I got to put that down. So maybe this is something to consider for other folks as well in this day and age. Like we've got control over our devices. We can tell
Hmm.
them whether or not we can be disturbed right now. We have those do not disturb settings. So you could set
Right.
it
Well,
to mom mode or dad mode.
you can also, there's a tool called Freedom, and it's an app and it works on your phone and on your computer. And you can tell it which websites you don't want access to during certain times.
That's
So
amazing.
there are lots of things that can help you get that focus, but I absolutely do not check my email after work. And my clients know that if there is an emergency, they text me. Now, there are a lot of business owners, they love the texting with the clients. I am somebody who only allows the texting if there is an emergency. And if a client does text me, like I will have them like, I need this updated on my website. My reply is, please send this to my email because that's where my tasks go. And whatever you send me in a text message is like not retained. Everything has to go on a list or it's not retained.
That is how I also function. I am not a fan of the texting. There are like maybe 3 clients who we text back and forth because that's just the type of relationship that we have.
Right.
Everybody else is like, look, and even with those clients, if they send me something really important that cannot be forgotten, it really does need to go into the inbox, the email inbox,
Yeah.
because if it's in my text inbox, the texts just kind of disappear from my brain. They don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's where I'm messaging friends or, my son or my husband, and it's just not my workspace.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it when, something is hitting the fan and they really need some help, but it's not a good place for the regular communication for me. Other
Yeah.
people, they love it. Whatever, it might work for you, but I feel like that is a hard place to put the brakes on. It's really hard to turn off texting.
Yes.
It's easier to not check your email.
Yes, 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 yes. Same experience that I've had as well. And now, a quick message from our sponsor. Have you ever been in the middle of a hike, trail run, bike ride, fishing trip, or other sport, but found yourself in pain due to blisters, sore joints, or cold toes and fingers? It's frustrating to have to head back inside when all you want to do is be outside. Dry Mile is built for those who don't want to let the weather or terrain slow them down. Dry Mile's high-performance socks and gloves are engineered for adventurers who demand comfort, durability, and protection in every step and stride. Whether you're traversing rain-soaked trails, tackling your next outdoor challenge, or find yourself in unpredictable conditions, Dry Mile keeps you dry and moving. With moisture-wicking technology, breathable materials, and a rugged design, their gear is built to endure the elements. Don't let discomfort hold you back. Visit drymile.com and get 10% off your order today with coupon code BUB. That's B-U-B. Get out, stay dry, and keep exploring. Dry Mile's got you covered. Thank you for staying with us, and back to the show. Earlier, you mentioned a complete disaster client or client interaction. What was that like? What ended up happening in a general way, and then how did you put the
Well,
boundary
without
on that?
like revealing too
No.
much about
Yeah.
it, they thought a decision I made on where to put their hosting was a bad decision, and instead of directing it to me, they CC'd a whole bunch of people. Like, it was a very underhanded kind of, it wasn't filled with integrity, right? And so I kinda had to deal with somebody's complete disrespect, and some of the people CC'd were part of my community. So, in that instance, it's always best to reply in a very professional way without pointing fingers and just kinda taking it. And I did that, and then I sat down with a Google Doc, and I wrote down everything that went wrong with the project and the interaction with the client, and instead of making all the blame theirs, what could I have done to prevent this from happening? And so part of it was not listening to my intuition on the feeling I got when I first met with this person. So this person didn't make me feel good when I first met with them. And I think that we have to have a really good rapport, but also a mutual respect. And clearly, there was no respect for me from this person. So that's what I sat down and wrote down. And there were a bunch of procedural things that I needed to do differently as well. It was a one-off situation. Nothing like that has ever happened to me again, but I learned so much that even though it made me fuming mad at the time, and it was painful. It was a painful experience. I turned it around and made it something positive for me. And
Yeah.
it's never happened again. So it kind of, it made me know to always listen to my intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing about that. It's not easy when we have those disrespectful client
Yeah, and
interactions.
this was years ago, right? And it still brings up like, oh God, that was terrible. But at the same time, it's it was a great lesson. And I'm grateful that that person taught me that lesson because it's been incredibly helpful for me. And I have not had an experience at that level since. Now, we all have, when you're a business owner, you're not going to have 100% great experiences with all your clients. You might drop the ball, they might drop the ball. There could just be like, you have to have a good rapport. And I tend to always, I'm not somebody who sends a contract off and says, sign it. I have a meeting with the person to go over everything. And that is like a big reveal for me. So I'm a
Mhm.
believer in the free consultation before somebody gets a proposal and a review the proposal, and you get a lot of interaction. And then you're starting off with just somebody who's going to be a client for a long time. I have really strong retention of my clients, and I think that that's part of the reason.
That onboarding flow is so important. So you touched on what that looks like. Can you walk us through what your onboarding flow is? What does it look like A to Z from first receiving a lead to now you're working on a project for them?
Right. So I'm in a BNI group, Business Networking International. I get a lot of referrals that way, and it's usually an email introduction. So I tend to do business with people that I know or people that know somebody I know. I like to stay in that realm. I'm not a designer who's just trying to get random people off the internet. So I start off with a free consultation, and it's either Zoom or on phone call. I have an intake form that helps me determine if I'm a good fit. If they fill out my intake form and they're looking for a Wix designer, then I'm referring them to somebody else. So we go through that. If they're a good fit, then I work up a proposal. I have a couple proposal templates. It still takes me about 25 minutes, half hour to work up a proposal because I want to look at everything they want done, and it's very detailed. I try to put as much information as I can in the proposal so I don't have scope creep or expectations that aren't there. And then I send them that along with a contract. My contract is 9 pages long. So that's another filter to make sure the person is serious. And also, it just covers all the bases because the internet is it's a scary place. You've got to have accessibility things in there and legal, all of that. Um, so I'm sending them a lot. And I always say, before you sign anything, here's a link to schedule a 30-minute proposal review. So I'm putting a lot of time in ahead of time. But there have been a few times they got the proposal, we're going through it, and they didn't tell me exactly what they wanted. It was different. And in that instance, probably not the right fit, you know? But it's worth that investment to make sure you are matched well. And then you can have a long-term relationship with that person.
Yep, yep. And I bet on the flip side of that, they are probably feeling more comfortable with you and
Yes.
they feel like they can trust you sooner because you are laying all of your cards out on the table and you're not afraid to answer questions and hold their hand through things. It's okay to invest that time up front.
Yeah, and both of these interactions, it's less about me talking and more about me listening. On a free consultation, I'm not hitting them with all of my information. I'm like, "Tell me how I can help you." And then I just shut my mouth and listen. And that is what brings the person out, and you see their personality.
Hmm? Yep, yep. I feel that in my chest in a warm fuzzy
Yeah.
way. I learned way back the best sales isn't you pitching what you can do and how great you are and all about you. Instead, you are listening to the other party.
Mhm.
What is it that they need? And then the, uh, 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 and then the cherry on top is okay, you understand what it is that they need and you can honestly say yes or no. Yes, I can 100% fulfill this person's needs and everybody's going to walk away happy. Or, you know what? This just isn't a fit and that's okay.
It's okay, and then because I do so much networking, I never leave a person without somebody that can help them. And I have gotten referrals from people that I didn't do their website, but I sent them to somebody that would help them. And they were so grateful that they gave me a referral to somebody else. So never leaving somebody empty handed is huge. And,
Yeah.
um, and I think when we first start our businesses, at least when I did, I wanted to please everyone and say yes to every project and didn't do any of these things like vetting. And it was just like, oh, you need this, you need that. Sure, I can do that. And it wasn't always the case that it was something I was confident doing. So
Mm.
yeah, I've never been like really big into e-commerce. And now I have a web designer BFF who loves doing e-commerce, and I just refer all of that to her. It is fantastic. And, it makes me feel good. And I have clients that I've done their regular website, and she's taken care of whatever e-commerce website they needed over time. And it's just so much better that way. Like, focus on your strengths. And unless you're somebody who just constantly wants to learn and on the job, don't say yes to something you're not sure about.
Yes, 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 yes. You know what I think I get about you is that you are not operating from a place of scarcity. You're operating from a place of abundance. You're
Yeah,
trusting that if you say no to somebody or you say no to a quote unquote opportunity, that's not the end all be all. That's not the absolute end of that road. That just means that now you have time and energy and space for something else.
exactly. I think being in a business group where I'm meeting every week and B&I, it's the same agenda for every meeting. So as a member, you stand up and say your name, your business, and what the perfect referral for you is. Now, I sometimes get a referral from inside the room, but I just think the act of speaking what you're looking for attracts it to you. So,
Yes.
yes. And
Yeah.
I'm so busy with my base work these days. Having recurring revenue changed my life, and I didn't develop that until 2015. I started a care plan for WordPress business. And when you develop that recurring revenue, it gives you the freedom to pick your projects.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That was a game changer for my business as well. It pretty much the exact same thing. Developing some sort of a maintenance plan that is ongoing or whatever it was. Maybe it's ongoing social media posts. It depends on the person's business.
Right. Or if you're a graphic designer, you could do, social graphics in a package every month. Or, just coming up with something that is of value that really helps your clients, but also gives you not that one job at a time income is life changing.
Right, right. Ooh, that is such a good tip. I love that. I love that. Expanding your service offering so that you have an ongoing income that is
Yes.
something that you can lean on and rely on every month. Yeah, because that the truth of business is that sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down and you just don't know what to expect if you don't have some sort of a foundation of ongoing revenue.
Right. If you're just one project at a time all the time, then you're always worried about the next one. And there are ebbs and flows. I mean, there's just naturally, you and I were discussing it earlier, there's like a summer lull because people have things to do. And then by the time September rolls around, they're like, oh my gosh, I need to work on my marketing. And then everybody's piling in. And so, it just helps you manage that up and down when you have something that's just going steady along the way.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And another way that people can also fill in the gaps in their, maybe they have a seasonal business, is to figure out an offering that works specifically for that business. So,
Mhm.
for example, I have an e-commerce client and they have waterproof socks. Fantastic for the spring and summertime when people are tromping through rivers or they're out fishing in the warmer months, but not so important during the colder months. So he developed a glove, a waterproof glove that's great for the cooler months. And that was the way that he was able to fill in some of
Pivot.
those
Yeah.
gaps. Exactly, pivot.
I think he could do quite well with waterproof socks in Seattle because that means that we could take out our garbage and work without shoes on.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's important as a business owner, look at your cycles, right? Your annual cycles and see where you can fill in some gaps. And also, again, like we mentioned with the ongoing revenue, that can help build a nice thick foundation throughout your entire year. So
Yeah, I think reflecting on things should be built into your day. right? I
Mm.
mean, just having time to reflect on what happened that day. That's why I keep a daily work journal. I have a template all set up in Google Docs and I fill it out every day. And I don't always fill out the end where I'm like, what went well today? But when I do, I learn something. And so whether, your client that made a pivot, at some point he sat down and thought about that. And a lot of times as business owners, our day is all client work all day, all the time. And you need to block out time to work on you.
Yeah. Ooh, that is such a good tip, especially as parents, we are juggling all of the things. So that self check-in, that check-in with our business, that check-in with ourself, regrouping and seeing, okay, what is working well in business and in life? Where am I just not feeling as great? And a good tool that a life coach had shared with me years ago was the wheel of life.
I've
Really
heard of
cool.
that. Like I haven't visited that in a long time, but I know that I've had an introduction to that somewhere in my business. Maybe it was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
B&I meeting where somebody brought it up. So,
Man, yeah, yeah. It's a really cool tool that you can adjust. Basically, the wheel of life, it's a big circle that is divided into segments all the way around. So picture spokes on a wheel, right? And every pie slice or every gap between the spokes is a different category of your life. So it could be your health, your finances, your career, etc. And you go all the way around.
your family, I remember
Yes.
this. Yeah, it's coming together. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And within the circle, it starts in the center, picture like a bullseye, and it goes all the way out to the outer diameter, and that is in 10 parts. So it's basically a scale of 0 to 10, right? And you get to rate each of those segments. How am I feeling about this segment? And it can be revealing because when you rate something lower on the scale, that is an opportunity to do what Cami does and pivot and say, you know what? What can I learn from this? How can I actually improve this area? And of course, like those parts of those different segments, those could be labeled however you'd like. So within your business, maybe it's clientele. Maybe it's industry that you're working within. Maybe it's your billing practices, your marketing. You can fill that in specific for your business. So it's a pretty cool
That's a
practice. It
great
can
tool. I'm going to look that up because that could be a nice addition to what I'm already doing, you know? And
Yeah.
you have to try things like that. Like maybe you do it once and you're like, "Oh, that didn't really help me too much," but sometimes it's a home run. And so anyway, you kind of have to spend time trying new things to help you maintain your sanity as you're balancing your home and your family and your work life.
Oof. Excellent way to wrap all this up into a neat little bow. Cami, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you if they have any questions or if they want to hire you for a WordPress website? Where are you at in the world?
I'm web Cami, and you can find me at webcami.com. I also have webdesignerhabits.com if you're a web designer and you want to get some good new habits for running your business. I have a small Facebook group called Web Cami Cafe that's for web designers as well. If you put web Cami into Google or AI, you'll find me. So, and I'm happy to chat with anyone who just needs an ear. Like, as women, we all need to help each other. And I'm a networker. So, if you want to chat, just reach out.
Preach, sister. It's so important. Having our village is so important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it
Yes.
really
Yes, yes,
is.
yes. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. I know our listeners appreciate it too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Thank you for joining us on Bringing Up Business. If you could, please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at bub.podcast. That's BUB.podcast. Finally, we'd love to get your feedback. If you have a comment or a guest idea, please let us know on our website, bringingupbusiness.com. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye. See you later.
Bye-bye. See you later.
This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered business advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording and are subject to change without notice. The views and opinions of guests on this program are not necessarily those of Umari Digital and its affiliates, which together we refer to as Umari Digital. Umari Digital is not affiliated with guests or their business affiliates unless otherwise stated. Umari Digital does not guarantee the accuracy or the completeness of the data presented herein. This recording is for informational purposes only, and the information, data, analysis, or opinion it includes or their use should not be considered business, financial, or legal advice. Umari Digital shall not be responsible for any decisions, damages, or other losses resulting from or related to the information, data, analysis, or opinions or their use. All business decisions are subject to risk, including possible loss of capital. Individuals should seriously consider if a decision is suitable for them by referencing their own financial position. Thank you.